Joe. Today, now going over to the Culture Prod podcast, you have Doritos still staying silent after the backlash and still getting roasted on social media. Now, this comes after Doritos, I don't know how mentally vacuous they were, but they didn't do a background check apparently, or a modicum of research when it comes to one of their brand ambassadors in Spain, who turned out to be, again, in terms of the United States culture, it is still very controversial to have a trans spokesperson or spokesman or whatever you want to call their brand ambassador, whatever title you want to prefer. That's a controversy in and of itself. The multiplier effect was this person also was one of the most, I'm trying to think of it, I don't think there's a polite way of saying it other than extremely mentally and spiritually vacuous, evil. They're a fan of doing bad things to children, to put it lightly. So there was a huge backlash because everyone said, PepsiCo, what the hell are you doing? Because again, Doritos, they're part of the parent company. They are a brand owned by Frito-Lay, which again, the big global company is PepsiCo Frito-Lay. And this post was actually all the way from March 1st, and still to this day, it's getting ratioed, as youth might see in the comments. And they've been silent ever since. And we've seen this a lot before. Sometimes the controversy is so bad, people will go back to even older comments and older statements from these companies, and you'll see the comments and they're just getting ratioed. Even though, again, some of those statements are even more in the past. Now, this was from the Doritos profile on X Twitter, and they said simply, "We love a good spice on our chips." And it says, "When the Cool Ranch spice hits." And it's a picture of someone, which totally unrealistic. They have a bag of Dorito Ranch. They opened it and they're pulling out one individual chip, which it looks perfect. Never really happens. And it's in the desert. And then it's juxtaposed with a picture of a guy with blue eyes with, I guess he has a buzz cut in the desert. And his eyes light up, I guess suppose, because his eyes become ranch dressing or ranch bag coloring. Which, again, I know advertisements is not always meant to be completely realistic, but if you're stuck in the desert, would you really want to eat something that's mostly salt when one of the biggest priorities when you're in the desert is hydration and not dehydrating yourself? So it's interesting. Perhaps maybe that's the point of the commercial or the ad. It's supposed to be so hilariously ironic or unrealistic. Probably not. Let's just dive in the comments. So again, for the views, it did really good actually. I mean, it got 132,000 views, which again for an individual brand is pretty good. When we look at Bud Light and Budweiser, I was getting like 5,000 to 12,000 views, in part because of the business blunder of the century of hiring Dylan Mulvaney. Now Doritos, again, they got 132,000 views earlier this month. This is post about this is on March 1st, but it only got 223 likes, which may very well be the worst like ratio I've covered on the show. Now, when we go to the comments, well, the first one simply comes from Texas Red saying, quote, "It's time to Bud Light Doritos." Hashtag boycott Doritos getting 1.3 thousand likes. You have Daveman saying simply, "Bud Light losing 1.5 billion in sales is a huge goal. We can beat that. Go Doritos." Unquote, getting 62 likes. You also have Mrs. Alma. I think it's not Aramaic. The first name is in foreign characters, so I can't read it. But the second part of the name is in standard English font, and it says Alma. So Alma says, quote, "Why did you choose a pedo to promote your product? Are you seriously out of your mind? My kids love Doritos, but I'm not buying your product no more. Pedo is way off limits." Unquote, getting 75 likes, despite the double negative and grammar errors. But nevertheless, the spirit is appreciated. Dems Controlled Cali says, quote, "Doritos is owned by PepsiCo. Boycott all PepsiCo products." Unquote, getting 538 likes, which, again, it should be very easy to boycott because, again, nothing they sell is required. Like, nothing they sell is anything but a luxury food or a luxury beverage. There's nothing wrong with good old tap water. Or if you feel so inclined, you can buy a little filter at home to be a little bit extra fancy. But yeah, literally everything they sell is an extravagance and a luxury you don't need. Now, you have Daryl Sterling says, quote, hashtag Doritos, Bud Light never recovered. To date, they've lost $1 billion. When your customers start eating other chips, your stock will sink too. What's wrong with you people? I'm getting 861 likes. Now, that being said, they also own a majority of the chips that you see on the store shelves. And a lot of Americans that really like their unhealthy food. Now, you also have Ken saying, quote, "Why does Doritos think that dressing and drag somehow excuses disgusting behavior. Everyone involved in selecting your brand ambassador should be fired. Only then should people reconsider supporting your brand. And quote, getting 79 likes. Which, again, to Doritos' credit, they did fire this individual. I suspect if they were to come out, very similar to the Bud Light phenomenon, if they were to come out and do a public apology, then you'd have people who would boycott them because they're not, quote unquote, sticking by this brand ambassador. Which, again, you have to ask yourself, what's the larger market, or, what amount of consumers are you going to piss off the most, or the least, so you can get the best amount of sales. I can't but think, granted, demographics of the United States are changing, but North America is one of the most important markets, and truthfully speaking, people in North America are not hip with those types of mentally and illegal activities. You also have, let's see here, James simply said, let's see how many billions we can cost Doritos. We cost Anheuser-Busch InBev $27 billion, let's beat that. And they're retweeting End Wokeness, and End Wokeness said, quote, this is who Doritos just partnered with for the brand ambassador in Spain. You know what you gotta do. Getting 947 likes. Just Call Me Charged says, quote, Doritos is off my grocery list for good, unquote. Pooch emoji getting 14 likes. You also have Brad Morgan saying, great job, Doritos, and is retweeting End Wokeness, where it's a clip of this evil person saying, quote, and this evil person, I think it's in Spanish though. So this individual is saying, I advocate for the destruction and for the annihilation of the traditional family, unquote. That was a brand ambassador. Which, again, if you look at historically speaking, the best cultural, I don't know if I want to call it invention or whatever you want to call it, but the nuclear family is the most efficient mechanism in history, I think, for society in terms of, actually raising a family and a society. And that did get 1.9 thousand likes. Let's see here. You have Kazian Zazasta saying, quote, this is your employee, and it's a picture of the former Doritos brand ambassador. I guess this individual's name was Samantha Hudson. And it's a picture of this individual talking about doing unspeakable things to children. They got 564 likes. Let's see, Murphy Mafia says, quote, get ready for the Bud Light treatment, quote, getting 1.5 thousand likes. And again, let's just scroll to the top, see how many total comments. There was 3,000 comments. And I've yet to find a single contrarian statement. And that being said, there are some individuals who would, call this individual brave, or they want to support this individual. I'd call those individuals that want to support that mentally vacuous. But they exist out there. And I don't know, maybe they will actually start to boycott those brands because they didn't, quote, unquote, stick with this brand ambassador. But I don't think it's coincidence that, again, it's going to be going down a month of Doritos saying nothing on social media, which, again, if you look at what Bud Light did, that was very similar. I believe it was almost 60 days where they just said nothing. Which, again, for social media, that's almost a lifetime. Usually people, especially brands, they'll tweet or post multiple times a day, trying to interact with prospective clients and fans. And yet, I'm not seeing a single contrarian statement trying to stick up for Doritos. And they haven't said much since. Again, given how this is almost devolved into a political ideology or almost a political type of speaking or political topic, it's one of those instances where maybe they'll just say nothing because they think they won't piss anyone off, which kind of inevitably it's not really going to make anyone happy. But maybe they think, hey, we say nothing, eventually things will get back to normal. Now, I am curious, it's been almost a month since the incident. If we pull up PepsiCo's stock, let me see here. Let's see. So in terms of the past month, I mean, it's basically done nothing to the stock. And again, they did fire this individual apparently as soon as they found out about this person's past and what they stand for. If you look at their stock, I mean, year to date is down 0.21%, so that's kind of negligible. The 6-month trend is down 1.61%. In the past month, though, it's increased 2.2%. And last week, it went up by 4.53%. So, I mean, there are a couple small dips, but again, I think the biggest difference between this and the Bud Light thing, where again, you both had spokespersons who were controversial because they're both trans in the United States. That's a controversial thing. And you also had issues where with Bud Light, they're targeting children because the average person who tuned in to Dylan Mulvaney is about 15 years old. In this case, I think it's actually worse because, again, the individual is saying down with the nuclear family. The individual is also talking about doing evil things to children. So it's one of those instances where it's almost worse for Doritos, but because they responded so swiftly And Bud Light to this day still claims that their VP of marketing is on an unpaid leave of absence or some ridiculous thing like that because they're worried about getting sued, which shows you how backward ass the course art system is in the United States. But I think because Bud Light, they took so long and they never really addressed the topic. Now, this one, they officially said, hey, they're no longer a spokesperson for the company. Would an apology from the CEO help? Perhaps. But again, it trended for a couple days in terms of boycott Doritos. But unlike a lot of other brands, they have more than 50% of the market share. Most people aren't going to know most of the brands that Doritos owns or PepsiCo owns. It's a huge portfolio. So let me know in the comments. Are you surprised the stock is basically did not affected at all by this? And do you think people are actively going to boycott it when, again, they did fire this individual pretty much day one? Granted, I'm not sure how mentally vacuous they are not to look at the background of this spokesperson, but I can't but think, culturally speaking, I think Bud Light, they're still going to be struggling for quite some time. But Doritos, it seems like they're okay. They trended for a couple of days, but it hasn't been consistent. I mean, I've been checking the X Twitter and haven't seen that trending since. But let me know in the comments. As always, it'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in. Again, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a thumbs up or thumbs down or comment is a great way to give me some additional feedback. Also, helping share it is great for the YouTube natural algorithm. Lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.